a farm where all of
Black
his
Cake Cafe.
yeah, yeah. And he and I contacted each other through Professor Griff.
Nice.
And
I
he'd like me to come out because he has a farm where the food comes right from the farm to his restaurant.
Wow. Now that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, man. So, and he's a young brother with a lot of different things. When I get there, there's so many connections in at Atlanta, man. There's so many good things happening there, man.
Everybody knows everybody too. That's the crazy part. It's like 6 degrees of separation.
That's it, brother, man. I mean,
Yes,
it's
sir.
just a really good thing. So, that's in the works for, possibly somewhere in the near future, maybe springtime or something like
Yes,
that.
sir.
So, but
Yeah.
I'll definitely keep you posted.
Yes, sir. Most definitely, Baba. And again, I appreciate you for your time and your busy schedule. So
Oh, hey,
thank you
brother.
again, Baba.
Brother, if I'm busy, I'm busy about being with good people like you and Sister Sid.
Thank you. Thank
That's what
you.
I'm busy about.
Thank you, Baba. Yes, sir, man.
No doubt, man.
This conversation, I'm super just excited for this because I remember seeing Gladiator II, and the first one, me and my dad, growing up, I remember when it first came out. We loved that film, but this second one, Baba, I think from just being older, having consciousness, because I think when the first one came out, I was probably like 5 years old, but
Wow.
this one, now being 27, having knowledge of self, and I was able to pick up on certain things that most people might not have, just paid attention to, and seeing how the film started off in Numidia in the very first scene. And I didn't realize this, Baba, until after seeing the film. I'm a nerd, so I love like looking up who's the cast, who are they, supposed to play, things like that. And seeing how one of the actors played as Jugurtha. And I remember growing up, my dad, he told me about that story, who he was as a king. And I didn't realize that in the film. So just seeing how they were sprinkling tidbits and gems all throughout there. But Baba, you were the very first person who I thought about. And,
Okay.
seeing all the
Okay.
great lectures that you've done, seeing the great work that you did with our good brother Amadeus Christ about the Moors before the Moors, and seeing that Denzel, he basically stole the show in this film. So I just wanted to have this conversation with you to share with the world about breaking this film down. So Baba, starting off, Denzel's character, it caught a lot of people's attention. I've seen clips where white historians have admitted too that there were actually more Africans involved in Rome and especially Roman politics that a lot of people don't even know about. But can we please just start off about the African presence in Rome during his heyday?
Well, you know what you have to do is you have to look at the African presence in the Mediterranean basin.
Hmm.
There are upwards of 27 different countries that exist today that were grounded in the African experience. And so that the people you want to look up, Pelasgian, Pelasgians, the Pelasgian. Because what you're going to find, Brother Caleb, and to the family that's listening and really focusing in on this concept is that you're going to have a lot of names given to you, okay? And you won't know that they're African.
Hmm.
They'll just give you the names, and then they put other people's faces on it, like Euclid. Euclid's geometry. Euclid was an African,
Wow.
but when they show him to you, he looks like he's like a Greek.
Hmm.
The same thing with Beethoven.
Yeah.
You know, you see the name, it appears to you to be a European name, but it's a Moorish name because the name was Thoven Bey. But when the Moors were driven out of Spain, in particular, because Beethoven's origins was a Spanish Moor, and so when the Moors were chased out, the first place they went was Amsterdam, the Netherlands, the family,
Wow.
and then because Ludwig van Beethoven's grandfather, his name was Ludwig. His father's name was Johannes, but they were Thoven Bey. It was
Mm.
Thovenbey. So to survive, what they did is they took the Bey, brought it into the front, changed the Y to another E, and now it's become Beethoven.
Yep. Wow.
You see, because when someone tells a perfect lie, the truth is unbelievable, Brother K.
Mhm.
And so before you even get into Rome, you've got to get into the Mediterranean basin because Africans were in the northern parts of Africa. They were in Spain. They were in Portugal. They were in France. They were in Monaco, which is like that little city, considered a state, that's between Italy and France, Monaco. Okay, and that's where they found Africans. The Grimaldis were found in Monaco. And this predates anything that's happening as it relates to the Mediterranean basin. So that when you look at the development of the civilization, let's just go to this area that we today call Italy. But you can't look at Italy without looking at the two major islands that's off the coast of the western coast of what we call Italy, and that's Sardinia and Corsica. These were major places where Africans lived. Then you come around to the more eastern side of the Mediterranean, and now you're looking at Turkey. You know, you're looking at what is going to become what we call Greece. You know, so that what you're actually doing is that you're placing Africans in the world arena where they are the only ones that are there. Because you're going back 4,000, 5,000, maybe 10,000 BC before the Indo-Europeans are coming out of the mountains in the northern part, like in Germany. Okay, because that's where they're going to come across. They're going to come across the northern boundaries and come down over the mountains, whatever it is. When you look at Switzerland, the original name of Switzerland was given to them by the so-called German speakers, and it was called Swaziland, which is the black land. There were black people in what we today call Switzerland. And it was the Alps that separated these two nations, the Alps mountains themselves. But now to go to what you're talking about in terms of Numidia, Numidia is an African nation that existed in Morocco. Okay, that's where the Numidians are. They're going to stretch across east, but basically they're going to be in Morocco. The Carthaginians, or who we call the Carthaginians, when you're dealing, with all of the other, in fact, Denzel's going to play him soon, Hannibal Barker.
Yep.
Okay, when you're dealing with Hannibal, what you're looking at is a very interesting, intriguing thing. And J.A. Rogers, in his book, World's Great Men of Color, Volume 1, he talks about what's happening in Numidia as it relates to the internal fighting amongst Black people. Everywhere we study our history, Brother Caleb, and we see outside peoples coming in, we never see them able to overcome the Africans. What they do is that they take advantage of us fighting amongst ourselves. Brother Caleb, we must stop fighting amongst ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to the Bloods. I'm talking to the Crips. I'm talking to every street organization that's out there. This is what they take advantage of. And this is what was going on at that time in history. Not to mention, there was a jealousy, there was an anger that Hannibal had been able to get across into Italy.
Yeah.
And so what happened was that during the Punic Wars, when Hannibal was asking for reinforcements, food, clothing, finances, weaponry, his own people didn't give it to him. Weakened his power, and he was stuck. You know the story of him crossing the Alps.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the idea of Hannibal being in this part, he was locked away from his own people. So he needed the reinforcements. He had performed miracles. But what was happening is that, unfortunately, the Carthaginians, very rich, they were merchants. And they also had another major city in the country we today call Lebanon. And that is where you also have the merchants in purple. Purple was the ancient color of royalty.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to come by. And so the Carthaginians, be they in Tunis or in what we call Lebanon, Carthage, they were able to become the merchants. And this is why you see the Greeks and the Romans The senator, the Roman senators always had purple on their robes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sign of royalty. And so this area that we're talking about, Italy, they weren't so much on the eastern side of Italy. They were on the western side, the coast of West. And the land was called Etruria, Etru, Etruria, Etruria. And the people that lived there were called the Etruscans. And so you have the presence of these African people in the Mediterranean basin long before Indo-Europeans came across the mountains after the Ice Age melted, about 2000, maybe 4000 BCE. So that you have these Africans here upon which these northern barbarians come down and meet these people. These are the people that are going to become the Greeks. They're going to become the Romans. They're going to become the Turkish people. This is after they meet the Africans. Okay, you're going to have the philosophers like Thales and Socrates and Plato all come in contact, and they're going to travel once the Ice Age subsides. Without understanding the Ice Age, it's hard to understand how this is going to take its place. But once you understand the Ice Age and the Ice Age ending about 10,000, give or take, BC, before the Common Era, you then have these Africans who depigmented themselves to become the Indo-Europeans, and they're going to come across, and they're going to be known as the Cro-Magnon people. And the Cro-Magnon are going to come down, they're going to come through Europe, and they're going to come down, and they're going to find themselves in this area that we today call Italy and Greece and Turkey. You're going to have some that are going to come from the east, because some of the Indo-Europeans that traveled over to the east came down through the east, and they came down through India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, and then they're going to start, and then they get kicked out by the Africans that are in this area, like the Sumerians and the Elamites. They're going to get kicked out, and they're going to be pushed west until they get into Kemet and Kush. And that's going to be their introduction to Africa and to help them understand. But these were barbarians. They didn't have much. They were a hell of a bunch of warriors with no conscience. I'll tell you that right now. They killed their mama, they killed their children. Evidence. Look at what's happening now. So
Yeah.
But sidebar.
Yeah.
But the bottom line, Brother Caleb, is that to understand, and when you see, like a couple of years ago, there was a movie, Robin Hood.
Yep.
And Morgan Freeman was in.
That's right.
And what was his name? He was called the Moor.
Yep.
Now, what is a Moor doing in France and England at this time?
That's right.
You see, and then you have Richard the Lionhearted, who was the King of England. But wait a minute, that wasn't his name. His name was Richard Coeur de Lion. He was French. Coeur de Lion means heart, de Lion of the lion. So they anglicized it to call him Richard the Lionhearted, but he was the King of England, but he was from France. And the reason why Robin Hood took place was because Richard the Lionhearted had to get back to England, because somebody that was his family that was sitting on the throne of France was going to take England.
Yep.
So that's why he was getting back to England and come upon Sherwood Forest. It's a fable, but there's history in that story.
That's right.
And this is what you see in terms of what we call Italy, Sardinia, Corsica, the gladiators, the numbers of Roman emperors. First of all, the emperor was how they learned from the Greeks. The emperor really was the pharaoh, their version of the pharaoh. And the way they broke the Senate down was the high priest. And they excluded the women, but Africans had the priestesses in. Because you ain't got no nation if you ain't got a woman that sit right next to you telling you what you better do from a feminine perspective.
Yeah.
You see, and that began the destruction of the African civilization until you get to 525. You have the Punic Wars that are going on somewhere between 200, 300 BC. And this is when the northern Germanic barbarians come down into Rome. And one of the major cities of the African Etruscans was called Ruma, Ruma. So that this history and what's happening is out of context. When you look at Denzel, you love the part that he played, but you don't understand how historically accurate he was. And you don't understand who the Numidians were.
Yeah.
The Numidians were Moors. In fact, they were from Morocco. And so when you have, and then Tunis is where the Carthaginians were in Africa.
Yeah.
But they were really just a family connection to Lebanon, that we call today Lebanon, where you had the other Carthaginians. Carthaginians were not a people, they were merchants. And they were merchants because tin was something they were looking for. The color purple was something they were looking for, so that they were the merchants of this particular Mediterranean area. And so when we're looking at Gladiator, none of us should be taken back or surprised. But we don't know history. And they're not going to teach it to you.
That's right. Wow. Wow, Baba. At JB's, you had a great lecture. JB's Record Lounge, great venue here in Atlanta. And one of the lines that you had stated that it kind of stuck with me. The Roman house was built on the Etruscan model. If you can you please break down that statement?
The Roman.
The Roman house was built on the Etruscan model.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was already there. The bathhouses were already there. The system of irrigation was already there. You know, family, let me tell you, when you find out what the ancient Africans had set in place in the world, you see, they purposely present us as a people who were primitive, who had nothing. And so fortunate to come in contact with Indo-Europeans who taught us everything that we know. It's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite. When you think about even in 710 BC, my bad, 710, 711 AD, when the Moors are going to move into Spain and Portugal, that's a preemptive strike. And the preemptive strike is because when you look at that general area, you have Germanic tribes. As the Ice Age begins to subside, and there's a warming trend that comes across the globe, particularly the northern area, you're going to have groups of people that are going to come from the north, and they're going to travel south. Three of the groups in particular that we're talking about are going to come through this area, Spain, Portugal. When you go up a little bit further, you're looking at the connection with Italy as we know it today. It's Etruria back then. But they're coming down, and they're coming down in large numbers. And the three groups in particular that you want to look at are the Gothic nations: the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, Goths, Ostrogoth, and the Vandals. Just by that name alone, you know what was on their mind.
Yep.
The Visigoths and the Vandals came down straight down into Spain and Portugal. The Ostrogoths took a eastern turn down into Italy. When you start dealing with them in Italy, that's when you're looking at Othello in Venice. This is what Shakespeare was talking about, Othello. And everybody say, why is there a black man in Venice? Because see, people's minds are just not there. They don't perceive that black people have done anything because it has been so weaponized against us in terms of our true history and culture about what we've done, that to think that, Denzel Washington, okay, yeah, oh, that's a great thing. Oh, yeah, okay. thinking of him not understanding what the Numidian nation was. The Numidian nation was a powerful nation in the ancient world. This is why the book that I'm writing now, when you first contacted me and told me about the Gladiator and you wanted to talk, and you remember I texted you back and told you, it's funny you should ask me this because this is the fifth and final book in this series that I've written. From William Leo Hansberry, which is a libation, to Spirituality Before Religions, which is a explanation of the spiritual text, to Shabaka Stone, which is actually the text that defines religions, the Abrahamic religions, then to Carbon Before Melanin. I'm bringing God down on the earth through Carbon Before Melanin. Still a little bit of science in it, but I'm bringing God down on the earth for us to see, when did God come to the planet Earth from the heavens? How did this spiritual system come down to the earth? And then I wanted to place the Spirit of God in the black man and the black woman. And that's what the book, The Moors Before the Moors, were. Because, see, we caught up on the Moors. There's a lot of discussion about Moors. Were they Arabs? No, they weren't. Even Arabs are black. Okay, the people that you're dealing with are people who are taking having gone to Kemet this summer. We started a little bit of rough there in Kemet, okay? Because we started dropping the science. Somebody took a picture of me in the Cairo Museum, and I'm talking, but they put a picture up, but then they did research on it. And then they found out the work that I do. And a lot of things happened, even then. And I told them, you did not build the pyramid. Okay? You weren't there. But you see, it's a big business there. So they make a lot of money. And if the world knew that the pyramid builders look like you and look like me and look like Sid, they wouldn't come. So they lose money. And there's an investment. Went to the new museum that they have there. They purposely call it Egyptian. So that there are people that are stealing our legacy, and they got no shame in their game, man. They'll take your history, claim it's them, and won't even think twice about it. The world was already structured. The Roman model was based. And just think, like I talk about the origins of the human family and the human being. And I talk about the fact that the apes and the humans are not, in fact, I have a whole section on this conversation about apes and humans. We did not evolve out of apes, but apes and humans have a common ancestor. And some people call it Ramapithecus. I don't care what you call it, as long as you understand that at some point in time, Ramapithecus, a section of Ramapithecus, for whatever reason, came down on the ground, started walking, and a section of Ramapithecus stayed up in the trees. The ones that stayed up in the tree became who we call the Pongids, or the great apes, orangutans, apes, chimpanzee. The ones that came down on the earth evolved into the hominid and eventually us. And so that when you have this dynamic understanding of how all of this occurred, you then look at the fact that these hominids and the Pongids, as they developed themselves, the ones that were on the ground had to create a new life system, which made them have to stay on the ground. They started eating differently, and they started to have to think differently. The ones that stayed in the trees only had to think tree-like. The ones that came down on the ground had to start thinking about, how am I going to outrun this lion that's been chasing me? There's a lot of things that the one on the ground had to start to do that the one in the tree didn't. Because the lion would spend most of its time just looking up in the tree. And the foods that they ate were foods that came from the arboreal or the tree life. Whereas the hominid had to do different things. And so they evolved over time. And the end result became the Twa and Buti Khoisan people, who we derogatorily call pygmies.
Yes, sir.
That's the first human family that came out of Homo sapiens sapiens, approximately, I don't like numbers, but we're going to throw out 250,000 years ago. That's when the human family began to distinguish itself from the Australopithecines to the Homo line people, who we are the end result of Homo sapiens. Sapien in carbon before melanin. What I try to do is I try to explain that there is a Homo perfectus in place, or what's called a super sapien. And for folk to get into cartoons, Dragon Ball Z, now you know who the Super Saiyan is. Again, they took our history, man. They take our story, man. And see, we don't know our history, so they can take it. You know, we can argue about they stole rap from us because we know we had rap.
Yeah.
But when you go into the ancient history, you don't know that the guy said to me one time in a presentation, he says, so you a son of an ape? And I say, yeah, but I'm not a son of an ape, but I am related to an ape. But you're a son of a bitch. Because the Roman story, and see, bitch ain't a bad word. A bitch is a female dog in heat. The story is Romulus and Remus were the two brothers that did battle with each other.
Yeah.
And Romulus defeated Remus. See, they've been fighting amongst ourselves from the very beginning. So what you see right now happening in the world with them fighting each other, this ain't nothing new. They've been doing this as long as they've been around, they've been fighting each other. And so now you have this story of Romulus and Remus. Romulus defeats Remus, and so now you call it Rome. But nobody realizes that both the name Romulus and Remus came from Ruma, which was an African city in Etruria. It's just the way it is. See, when you drop it like it's hot, Brother Caleb, some people have a challenge with it, but I'm evidence-based. I'm not into the emotion.
Sir.
I critically analyze us as a people. And I take the best and leave the rest. I analyze what we've done that wasn't correct. And the one thing that we've done is never correct is we fight amongst ourselves and we let other people come in and divide us, and then they conquer us. Every step, from Kush Kemet to the civil rights movement, to rap music, to street organization. Even to this day, we're fighting amongst ourselves. And they use that, they aggravate that, they agitate that, which makes us angrier with each other. They separate us by our gender, brothers from sisters, the less pigmented from the more pigmented, the straight hair to the kinky hair. You know, they separate us. And when they separate us, we fight amongst us, the old from the young. And so the very nature of Western civilization is based on the African mind. Every religion is based on the African spiritual system. And it's just the way it is. It's evident. There's a preponderance of overwhelming evidence of what I'm saying, and I'm trying to get it to our young people. Because sometimes when you get to a certain age and you get mature, you buy into the lie. Because you're comfortable being a slave. I've been a slave all my life. I don't want to be free. If I'm free, that means I'm going to have to do something.
Yeah.
But when you're young, you're ready, you're energetic, you want to know the truth. And what I see in everything around me right now, with our young people who are rebelling, whether it be elections or whether it be whatever it is. Okay, we as the elders let our young people down. We didn't tell them the truth. We didn't stay with them. We didn't walk with them. We didn't explain to them. Rap music is the evocation of hip hop culture. My generation is hip hop. And hip hop came out of the Motown sound. It came out of Aretha Franklin, Marvin Gaye, James Brown, Sam Cooke. Okay? And then out of that hip hop was born out of doo-wop with the Shem and the Limelights, singing the Duke of Earl, in the still of the night, the Chantels, okay? That doo-wop gave birth to hip hop. And doo-wop was given birth from the original coming up out of the 20th century. You know, yeah, yeah, hip hop and then doo-wop and then bebop. And it all matches. Here's hip hop. When I was growing up, hip meant it was good. Yo, man, that like you say, yo, man, that's dope. We say, yo, man, that's hip. Okay. And hop was a dance. You can Google it now. Let's go to the hop. That was a song. Let's go to the hop, which meant we were going to a dance. And then hip hop became a smart dance, a dope dance.
Like that. Yeah.
Okay. And then when we got to the hop and we saw the sister off to the side, we'd say, you mind if we rap a little while?
Rap to you. Yeah.
Can I rap to you?
Yes, sir.
And all of it can be traced back to Africa. This is all a legacy that has been brought forward. I bring this up to just give an overview of the fact we don't know our history.
Yeah.
And when we don't know our history, other people can come in and steal it. You want to know Elvis Presley? There's two performers that you got to study to understand where Elvis Presley came from. Jackie Wilson and Roy Hamilton. Just listen to them. Watch the way Jackie Wilson danced, and watch how Roy Hamilton inflected his voice. So when you hear Elvis go, oh, oh, okay, that's Roy Hamilton. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. That was Roy Hamilton. Not to mention, he stole a black woman's song, Hound Dog.
Yep.
We don't know our history.
Yeah.
But it's our job, my generation's job, to come on programs such as yours, to talk to the generation and let y'all know how great you are and how you come from a long legacy of excellence. You take stuff that people would throw away and you turn it into gold. You got what's called the Midas touch. They on the plantation, they gave us the worst of the foods. And we made it a delicacy. Okay, they denied us everything possible in the music world. And yet we created hip hop. The world watches us and copies us. The young people, there was a point when we were in Cairo, when we were going to arrest. This is in June now. And there's a brother, Seth Fifth, that is a videographer. He's an engineer. And he was on the trip with his family. And he videotapes things. And he videotaped these young people outside the restaurant when there were 61 of us. And when they dropped us off in front of the restaurant to go to eat, they started rapping.
Wow. And
Seth Fifth brought out the camera and started filming. And then they started to break dance. They started to dance in the street. This is the truth. When they found out we were American, they associated, particularly when they saw us, they knew that there was some connection with hip hop, rap music, and they were twirling and dancing and jumping. That's not the only time. They also did it in Middle Egypt, in Luxor, where Seth Fifth was taping a rap song he was doing. And he has them singing. And the funny thing was that the chorus was, "It's black." You had all these Egyptian children talking about, "It's black." Let me hear you again. "It's black." In Egypt. This is us everywhere we go. I went into a small city in Mexico. They had T-shirts of Michael Jackson. I've gone to places in Egypt where they got pictures of Malcolm X on the wall. Muhammad Ali. Brother Caleb, we don't know how great we are. When someone psychologically makes you feel that you have done nothing,
Yeah.
Power is the ability to define someone's reality and have that person accept that definition as if it were their own. We have bought in, we are repeating what they're saying. I can't tell you how many times I was in school with children where the intelligent child that had all the answers, that did all the right things, some of the other children would say, "Oh man, you acting white."
Mm,
I said, "No, they acting black."
that's right.
That's the origin of knowledge and wisdom. This is the strength that having a teacher of my consciousness in the classroom with children comes from. Okay, and also a black man. Sisters been doing their thing, but when you got a black man in that classroom, and I'm telling them how beautiful they are, I'm telling you how intelligent you are. That ain't being white, that's being black. You ought to be black too.
Hmm.
In fact, it were white people that sat in front of black people to learn what black people knew.
Hmm.
So in a sense, they're being black, you being white. They say, "I ain't white." I said, "Well, then you better start being smart and be black."
Hmm.
Because we know how to talk to our children.
That's right.
I was once one of that. I was one of them one day. I knew what I needed to be told. And that's just what we have to do. We have to understand history. Now, when we see Hannibal, now what I'm encouraging people to do is to also Ivan van Sertima wrote a very powerful he edited a book on great African leaders, ancient and modern, where he has a chapter on Hannibal. Okay. Massima, who was a Numidian. J.A. Rogers has a chapter on him in World's Great Men of Color, Volume 1, where he deals with the Numidian. And he deals with Hannibal and Hannibal's father.
Yeah.
Who preceded him.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, it's just the history is there, and we are blessed to have had people such as J.A. Rogers back in the day. You know, he is my ancestor, elder.
Hmm.
Okay, friend to William Leo Hansberry, who I wrote my first book on William Leo Hansberry. I've got pictures of them together where they worked their show. And of course, Professor John Henry Clark, who was my living teacher, Dr. Ben. Okay, Dr. Ben tell you about Hannibal. He'll tell you, Dr. Ben used to tell stories on the corner of 135th Street outside a restaurant, Pan Pan, where he used to always eat. He'd be lecturing on 135th across the street from Schomburg Library. Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark were Malcolm X's history teachers. We have to understand our history. So when you go to see the Gladiator, Denzel Washington don't stand out. He is not the exception. He's the rule. We don't know how many black popes there were. Militatus was one of them who was who was in battle with Constantine. He was the pope during the Nicene Creed. That's when Christianity was split in half. And that's when you have Arius goes up into the mountains of Europe. Black man go up. He was a bishop. He went up into the mountains of Europe, and because he found out that they were going to assassinate him. Wow. Because Constantine said, "Everybody got to agree with me." Okay, everybody got to agree with me. If you don't agree with me, I'm gonna kill you. And Arius found out that he was about to be assassinated, so he went up into the mountains of Europe with his followers, and they came to be known as the Aryans. And I often say, wouldn't Hitler be shocked?
That's right.
To know where the word Aryan came from Arius. Aryans were the followers of Arius. We got to understand our history and the role that we played in the development of spirituality. And to the sisters, I'm telling sisters right now, get a book called Sibyls. Sibyls. Get that book, family. Brothers, also get the book, but sisters, so you understand where the Catholic Church came from. You get that book, Sibyls, and you'll understand Nebetet as it relates to the hierarchy in the gods, if you want to call them that, but the essences or the neteru of ancient Kush, the role that females play, the oracle leader. So that when you know your history and when you understand, well, we can go back to Gladiator II, and we can go back to Etruria, the Etruscans, and what they left behind. And, it's funny that the Romans get credit for the one thing that Romans did do is turn blacks against each other,
Hmm.
particularly during the Punic Wars.
Yeah.
And then out of the Punic Wars, that's what allowed them to come down and defeat the Greeks. And then in defeating the Greeks, taking over Egypt, and then beginning to rule the world. Their capital really was in Egypt.
Yeah.
But they got top heavy.
Yeah.
They wanted to conquer too many people. They spread, like my mama said, you spread yourself too thin. So they started to become very top heavy, and they couldn't handle all the different nations that they were attempting to conquer. And so by 426, again, another wave of Germanic tribes come down from Northern Europe, come down and destroy them. And this is the Visigoths and the Vandals. And that's the fall of the Roman Empire. Mm-hmm. I tell black people now, you better get yourself together, because this is the fall of the Roman Empire right now.
Yes.
Bob Marley got a song, So Much Trouble in the World. War. We got to get ourselves together, because they're going to need our expertise to save them. And we're going to need some super sapiens out there ready to make it happen for us as a people.
Wow.
Starts with self-knowledge, complemented by self-love. But once black people find out about themselves, you can't help but love yourself. You'll be kissing yourself all day long. You're just going to love yourself. You're going to love the width of your nose, because in Carbon Before Melanin, I try to explain why the African's nose, the nose nasal index is so wide. And that's because when you're in the warm weather and you got all that greenery around you, all that oxygen, you breathe in all that oxygen. So your nose spreads. But when you get up into the ice, in order for you not to freeze your lungs and your throat, your nasal index has to become aquiline and thin. And it has to grow a lot of hair. Okay? And so that's why the nose got thin on Indo-Europeans. When you out in the sun, heat expands and cold contracts. So you got them big, thick lips. Everybody be going to the doctor to take fat from their butt to put in their lip, because they want to have lips like you. And then all the time they telling you how ugly your lips are, and they're willing to risk their life to have lips like yours. Not to mention laying out in the sun to get a tan to have your brownness. And in the wintertime, they've already invented this thing look like a coffin. Where they lay up there trying to get suntan in the wintertime, and then forget the sprays that they'll put on their bodies to look orange and red and brown and all the rest of that. And the whole time they telling you how ugly you are, and the whole time they trying to look like you. And I could talk to you about the hair, but that's a whole nother thing altogether. It's just the way it is, brother Caleb. Mm-hmm. And the Etrurians, the Etruscans, Etruria is only an example. You can do the same thing in Greece. You can do the same thing in Turkey. You can go to the islands of Crete, Manoa, okay, and see African presence there. But the word you're looking for is the Pelasgian. Yeah. Because that's the name that they're going to call. When they use the word Pelasgians, know they're talking about black people, melanated people with kinky hair. That's who they're talking about. And when my next book come out, I'm going to show you pictures of the Pelasgians and the civilizations that they created. And when they did their artwork, they had to have been an advanced civilization to be able to depict themselves the way they did. The white of the eye with the black on the inside, the gold vestments that they wore, the rings that they had on their finger that could distinguish between the brownness of their skin and the goldness of the ring. You have to be an advanced civilization to do that. And they were doing that before Europeans, Indo-Europeans were even there. This is who we are. When we wake up, see, Bob Marley say we in a sleepless slumber. Okay, we up, we work, walking around. And now what they got? They got a term that they putting on us now to make us feel shame. They talking woke.
Yep.
Okay, woke. When they say woke, they mean black. And the bottom line is woke means you're not asleep no more. I'm proud to be woke. I plan to stay woke. Even when I'm asleep, I'm woke. And this is what we have to do. Okay? We have to begin to develop this understanding of ourselves and our people and what we've achieved. And when we go to the movies, our children say, oh, I learned that in class. Brother Caleb was teaching me about that. Sister Sid, Brother Kaba was telling me about the Etruscans. They were there before you. The island of Sicily, stone cold black. That's why Sicilians are so black.
Yep.
Kinky hair, too. Kinky hair. So this is who we are as a people. This is who we've developed ourselves into as we move forward.
Wow. I'm loving this conversation, Baba. And on that same point about all the jewelry, Denzel's character, he was wearing all the jewelry. He had the earrings, he had the rings on. So that fits perfectly into what you just broke down.
Oh, yeah.
Also, speaking about Romulus and Remus, Denzel's character died underneath their statue at the gateway of Rome, right underneath that. And seeing that, it made me have this question, Baba, why do you think the Romans were so inherently violent? From seeing things like they had the ancient arenas where everybody would fight at the Colosseums, and to have everyday people rave at other people dying, all of the enslavement that was going on. Romulus and Remus, that whole origin story about fighting over wolves' breast milk. Why do you think that they were so inherently violent as a people?
Because of the Ice Age.
Hmm.
Think about your environment shapes you. Your environment, your everyday life shapes you. Think of living under the sun. Think of how plentiful food is, how you can live your life. What ushered in the greatest advancement to the human family was sharing. See, you see animals outside of mothers in particular, but parents, animals, they feed their young. But outside of that, they don't share. That's an animalistic quality they possess. They fight over food. When humans went to the next level and developed themselves, when you can grow watermelon, fruits, vegetables, and you can eat, that tells you that your environment, which is where the word economics comes from. Echo comes from the word oikos, which means your environment, your home. Nomics, to know your environment. And so when you have a sun that gives you plentiful life, you get the impression that God loves you. And so therefore you create a philosophy and a life system where you love other people and you share. And so you have, let's say that you have peaches where you are on your land. And let's say I have watermelons. I can eat watermelon all day. You eat peach all day. But then all of a sudden I see you eating peach, you see me eating watermelon. And I say, listen, can I share some watermelons with you and you share some peach with me? And that way you eat peach and watermelon and I eat watermelon and peach. We see other people that have other things. We start to share. You create a concept of love, mer, a divine love, because you are only as great as your environment, and your environment is a reflection of your creator. Now think of being in the ice where you ain't got that. Where there come time you got to eat each other in order to survive. Think of that type of personality trait that you would create. They have a proverb that comes out of the ancient Ice Age that says, if you see your best friend chasing a pig, don't compete with your friend for the pig. Let your friend catch the pig, and then you eat your friend and the pig. This is how it is. And during the Crusades, the Crusaders ate the infants in the cities that they came upon. And they fought for the rump, for the butt of the infant, because it had the most tender meat. There was a 4-part series on A&E dealing with the Crusades, and they told that story. Evidence of it. And so it comes out of your environment where it's not about sharing. It's about stealing, lying, because you're trying to survive. And you'll lie, you'll steal, and you'll cheat to survive. And that's what he did. And she. And so the attitude that they have is they have no mercy. They have no conscience. And you see, for us as a people, we weren't used to that type of person. Even in our worst time. You know, we didn't have that concept. We mistreated each other, yeah. We were at war with each other. And we did not do good things with each other. But that was not the rule, that was the exception. I mean, when you look at what's going on now, no sense of truth or justice or balance or harmony. They're ready to build a society around. And yeah, I tell people all the time, you know, people call it fascism, they call it Nazism, you know, they call it oligarchy. I tell you, look, put all those words to the side and look up the word feudalism. 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 And when you look up the word feudalism, you'll understand the base of their civilization, how they see the world, how they react to them. The ones on top call themselves the lords. The ones on the bottom were the serfs. And so they conduct themselves this way, and we should not expect anything else from them. But you see, Brother Caleb, we are such a loving people. Okay? That's what built the pyramid. But the mistreatment of that love and the non-ability to identify certain people in the world, that love also put us on the plantation. And so we are a people who are searching for love, particularly because of our experience over the past 400 or 500 years, all around the world. But there is groups of people rising in Africa, young brothers and sisters rising in Africa, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Mali, Ghana. They know what they have now. And they ain't gonna let nobody take it from them. In time. In time. But to me, I don't speak in absolutes, Brother Caleb. I've had the distinct pleasure of meeting good people in all cultures. Okay, I don't blanketly label a culture anything. But I ain't got time to look for good people because I'm too busy trying to work with my own people.
That's right.
And even in our own people, I'm looking for 3 out of 100 because, Caleb, our people are not ready to do the work that needs to be done.
No.
They have the potential, but they're not there. And I'm not about to try to convince anybody. I ain't looking for converts. If I have to convince you of what we need to do, there's nothing I can say that will convince you. If I don't need to convince you, then let's just roll back our sleeves and get it on.
That's right.
So I'm trying to start a roaring fire in a fireplace. And there are 12 logs. I'm not going to try to light all the logs because I burn myself. But if I light the log that's closest to me, put it in the fireplace, That first one will light the second to the third to the fourth, on down the line. Pretty soon you have a roaring fireplace, 12 logs on fire, but I only lit the first log. So I want to talk to the folk that are ready for this, ready to roll back their sleeves and get this work done to educate our people and our children. It is not easy, but I've always appreciated work, good work. I don't labor, I work. Labor is when you do things you don't want to do, but you do it anyway. Work is things you were born to do. I want to work. Hard work is good work. And that's what we got to do. I love my people unconditionally, but if you ain't ready, you ain't ready. Okay? And I've learned that when you try to wake somebody up that ain't ready to get awake, okay, they get in your way. You wish you never woke them up in the first place. In fact, you want to hit them over the head, knock them out, put them back to sleep so you can get your work done. If you're not ready, I'm sorry. I love you. Bye-bye. I want to talk to people that are ready to get this work done. And to be able to do the work that is necessary. Part of the work, Caleb, as you know, is financial support.
Yeah.
Okay? They're the two most important organizations that have the most power in the Black community is the church and the gangs. And both of them are family to those that participate. Because I know I'm from, I taught in South Central Bronx for 31 years. I was in and out of the street organization, the gang. I had a brother dyed his hair red and had to come to my room to eat because the Crips wanted to kill him.
Wow.
You ain't coming down here with no red hair, boy. So that I've seen what they do. A fatherless family where there's no man in the house.
Yeah.
Okay. That gang members say to the young brother, you hungry? Yeah. What you want? Popeyes. Come on, let's go to Popeyes. Say, what you want? Oh, I'd like the medium chicken with fries and a drink. Gang members say, supersize it for my man. You like these sneakers? Yeah. I'm going to get you a pair just like this. That's what a father does for a child. Feeds them and clothes them. We have got to be able to offer our people family to help them understand what it is. We got to be able to solve their problems and meet their needs at the same time, educate them. And that's what the Black Panther Party did. Everybody focuses on the gun. I understand. But I remember the Panthers as the education. I was part of the education as a young brother. I was the one that went to those meetings where they taught us. I learned my first words in Kiswahili in Black Panther meetings. My mother said, please, whatever you do, Skip, I know you're going, don't eat the food. Because she was always afraid that the government would poison it.
Wow.
And she said, also, don't sign nothing. Don't put your name on nothing.
That's right. Wow.
And it was so sad that now that I look back, that was such a sad thing for my mother to have to say, because these were such wonderful people at these meetings. And I am sure that they would never have even thought about doing any harm to us. But it was the outside forces that was coming in, attempting to disrupt the meetings. And so this is what we have to offer our people. And we have to be serious about it. Something that we have to think about as we move forward. I'm looking to light the log that's closest to me. And also, my job is to make it possible to make it possible. You can't overwhelm yourself. You and Sid have to enjoy your life. Enjoy life. That's what we're here for. And that's a lot of young people say. You always complaining, fighting, fussing, arguing about what people are doing to you. Why do I want that? Young people want to live. They want to see a purpose for life. I enjoy life. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy my socialization. I enjoy my fellowship with my people. I enjoy my family. I enjoy my children, my grandchildren, my wife, everything that goes into it. Enjoy your life. Don't play when you work. Don't work when you play. But see, the way in which we may be presenting this challenge that we have to our people is in an unpleasant way. We need to be proud of who we are, but we have to love ourselves. Hard work is good work. I like to work.
Yeah.
In fact, after I finish talking to you, bro, I'm going to work. I'm going to finish writing my book.
Mm.
In fact, I'm working on 2 different books right now. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be doing webinars. I'm going to be doing the things that I believe that I was born to do for our people. And I love what I do, and I love our people. I'm so proud of what we do. I'm so proud of who we've become. If you're Black and alive in 2025, you're a miracle. Because you ain't supposed to be here. And the fact that we here talking to each other, New York to Atlanta, it's a miracle. The fact that you'd be your age where you are wanting this information, the fact that I be where I am wanting to give you this information, you sharing your information with me, I share my information with you, is a miracle. We weren't supposed to be able to read, bro. We were not supposed to be able to get off the plantation. I don't know what they thought was going to happen to us after we freed ourselves. I guess they always thought we'd be their slaves. But they didn't know the power of God within the Black man and the Black woman. The Creator is a strong force. He don't play no games because she knows what she has to do. And we are the children of our ancestors. And when you go back far enough, you only have one ancestor, and that's the Creator. And you are the Creator having a human experience.
I needed this one, Baba. This is a great conversation. Thoroughly enjoying this. Throughout the film too, it was again so many things. Denzel's character, of course, he stole the show, but I think I felt somewhat conflicted because as Black people in cinema, we're always looking for representation, whether that's a movie about Jesus in the Bible and us knowing everybody's supposed to be Black and they're not seeing white people with British accents. But in this film, I saw that so many Black people felt attracted because Denzel, of course, he's a superstar and he's in this film, a Black man in ancient Rome. But I felt conflicted because I'm like, yeah, he's Black, but he was a menace in there. He was a slaver, opportunist, manipulator. He took advantage of people, a murderer. And it kind of made me think about other Black Romans who were involved in Roman politics during that time, Baba. And I guess my question for you is, should we revere these Black African people who were involved in Rome, ancient Rome during this time? Or how should we feel about those people? Because I know 500 years from now, 1,000 years from now, they'll probably talk about President Obama, who was a Black man. And yes, representation wise, it was cool, but he was still over a overall system that had its foot on Black people. So how should we feel about these ancient Romans who were involved in politics, Africans who were involved in politics during that time?
I'd say judge a person by the content of their character.
Right.
And learn from them. And like we say, brother, everybody is not Ma'at.
Indeed.
And so it becomes important that we don't identify necessarily with the person. See, we're so caught up in trying to see us because we so rarely see us. But you don't have to identify. Okay. The part that he played was the part that he played. He also played Frank Lucas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
He also played, he got an award for Training Day.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's an actor acting a part. And that within each of us, that is what the Asarian drama tells us, the African story of life, the Asarian drama. that we have all of these different personalities. We are all born with a creator and with a demon. And it is the demon's job to make us believe we'll never reach our divine purpose. And it's the creator's job to make sure the demon fails. So that as I watch movies, I watch the part that they play and I go along with it. But they are not who they are because they're black. They are who they are because that's the role that they played in that movie. Yeah. And so when I see Denzel, at the same time, Denzel played Malcolm X.
So, yeah.
Okay. And so what becomes important for us as a people is critical thinking skills. And the way I teach children critical thinking skills is, particularly in the first grade when I taught language arts, it's called finding the main idea, where there's cards that you have. And there's a paragraph, maybe 5 sentences, 6 sentences, and you have the children read the sentence. And then after that, there's like about 4 questions. And if the child is able to critically analyze those sentences in the paragraph, like for instance, the story may be about visiting a pet store. And there could be 3 or 4 sentences about a particular dog that is always trying to eat people's other dogs' food, for instance. And a question may be, what is the main idea about Fido? And one of the answers is he's always trying to eat people's food. It means that the child has been able to analyze those sentences in a way that they know that's a main thing because he's always trying to eat people's food. That skill is what you take to college. When you're listening to your professor and you're taking notes, you've got to find the main idea that your professor is talking about, because chances are that's going to be a question on that test he gives. Yep. Finding the main idea, critical thinking skills. You can go to a movie and enjoy it. We have our angels and we have our demons. The same thing with rap music. Everybody's talking about, the fact that, rap music make people commit crime, but ain't nobody arresting Al Pacino for playing Scarface or The Godfather. So why are you jumping on black folk with rap music? Okay, well, that's part of what it is. That's a part of the image that they're trying to give you, that we are criminals. And so I think that as I look at the parts that we play, critical thinking skills, if I were to take a child to a movie like that, I would take them out, have a little bit of something to eat afterwards, and we would talk about what they experienced. Talk to them. That's the one thing that I always did in my classroom. I would always ask the children, like on Monday, I would always ask them if anybody went to see a special movie. And then when they said, sometimes, a main movie came out on Friday, everybody went, and they would have gone to see the movie. I said, well, what did you like the most about it? And then what did you not like about it? What do you think the most important thing you learned about it was? And then some of the other children saw the movie too. Maybe not the same time, but they saw the upcoming movie. And I said, well, what did you think about that? And then so we'd have a class discussion, critical thinking skills. Sometimes I put their words on the board. I have a word splash. Now, to answer your question, when you say, how should we receive it? This is what we should be doing in our mind. What did you take from the movie? One thing that a lot of black folk going to say, I didn't know there were black people in Rome. No matter how we acted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not realizing that, in fact, the story emanated out of Africa. The Roman Empire became an empire in Africa in 30 BC when they took over Kemet. And they forced the Greeks to teach them what the Cushites taught them. And they never got it. They never understood it. And the Greeks had the teachers were called the Gnostics. Gnostic. And the researchers were called theists. Theist. The having a a sense of the creator, of God, feel. But they were the researchers that searched for information, believing that a theist was somebody that searched for the truth. And when the theist would teach the Gnostic what they had researched, the Gnostic would go into the classroom and teach the students what they had learned from the theist. The Gnostics would then go back to the theist and tell the theist what they experienced in teaching what the theist was. And the theist would go back and do more research, refine their work, make it better, take it to the next level, and then come back to the Gnostic, and they would go into the classroom and teach. That was the cycle of education. Sacred. It was sacred. The Greeks taught that to the Romans. But then the Romans wanted to take over the civilization. So they had to outlaw Greek information, which was African information. And so what did they do? They put an A in front of each of those words. So the Gnostic became agnostic.
Agnostic, I see. Yeah.
And the theist became atheist.
Atheist. Wow.
And that was what stopped the Greek from rising from what they learned from the Cushites. And that's how they toppled the Greeks. And the Roman Empire came into existence. And then they attached themselves to the Black woman who taught them the oracle reading. And that's where the Catholic Church came from. When you look at the physiologists, where the early Christian fathers took all of the neteru, the concept of the animals, sight, sound, and they turned them into white men that we call saints. And it was the Black woman that gave them the oracles, not knowing that they would later be destroyed. The whole mathematical system, well, maybe not the whole mathematical, but a large part of the mathematical system was based on a Black woman named Hypatia. 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 Brilliant mathematician. Romans got so mad at her, they drug her out of her temple, skinned her alive, and burnt her in the streets. Hypatia. Beautiful sister. Brilliant. Taught the Romans. So, to respond to your question, in terms of how do we view it, we should view it the same way we view everything. Critical thinking skills, higher order thinking skills, having discussions with our young people. Because when they see Denzel Washington, they're going to love Denzel.
Yeah.
And those that are leaning towards gangsterism is going to love that attitude that he had. And I mean, I understand. But do they know Numidia? And do they know Carthage? Do they know the history behind it? And see, out of this, you would know that there are Black people that act like that. You could just look around you right now. We got Black folk act like that right now. And so those are the type of conversations that you can have. We all have demons in us. And when those demons are drawn out, those are the ones that take over your life system. When you let the creator take over, then you live a life of a creator basis. And these are the kind of conversations that you can have with children. Like, do you want to turn out the way the Gladiator turned out, that Denzel Washington played the part? I mean, do you want to turn out like that? Have conversations, because some people would. They say, yeah, man, you gangster. I like it. Say, what did you like about it? Talk about it. Like my thing when I was with the young people, I always let them talk. Whenever I would go to Rikers Island, because I used to teach at Rikers Island, and I used to come back, and all of the would-be thugs, if I may call them that, in middle school, they used to just love me telling them stories about Rikers Island and about what my experiences were in prison. I used to just dramatize how when you go in there and that gate closes on you, and then you got to go through another gate, and then you got to go through another gate. But see, what I did was I was able to take the story and turn it around and present it to them in a way that I would tell them that at 11 o'clock, when the lights go out in Rikers Island, all you hear in the young people's area, people crying. They come home all big and bad. I've been in school. Yeah, I've been there. I've been in Rikers. But when you was in Rikers Island every night, you used to cry to sleep. You big and bad when you get out. But when you were in there. And so, to go back to what you're saying, having conversations about the characters, because, everybody got upset when Denzel has played certain parts, but Denzel is such a great actor, he played it.
Mhm.
He played Malcolm to Malcolm. He played Frank Lucas to Lucas. He played the Gladiator to. He's an actor. Hey, Al Pacino put a pretty good job in on Scarface, although he didn't have much of a Spanish accent. But that's okay.
Right.
But I mean the idea that but it is something to be concerned about, and it should be concerned about if we don't have those types of conversations with our people, particularly our children, because our children are picking up messages that we may not pick up because they don't have the collective experience that you have. So what they see is what they see. So when they passing them gang members on the corner, okay, they reflect back to Denzel Washington in Gladiator or Frank Lucas when he's with drugs. When they come upon someone selling the final call who's a Muslim, they remember Denzel as Malcolm X. But having those conversations with our young people and with our community in general, to talk about it. Because like what we're doing right now is very powerful. Because we're bringing the Numidians front and center, and I'm giving them books to read as it relates to, if you want to know more about Numidians, here's the stories. J.A. Rogers, World's Great Men of Color, Volume 1. Okay? You can go to Great African Leaders, Ancient and Modern. Get that chapter on Hannibal. Understand who Hannibal of Carthage was. And when the book is finished, you can get the Moors before the Moors. Because I'm going to show you where the Olympics came from.
Yes,
I'm going to show you who the Moors were before the Moors. Before the name was, before it was Moors, it was Ethiopia. After the Moors, it was Negro. But all three words mean black. Ethiopia means burnt face. Moor means black. Negro means black. A derivative coming out of particularly the Spanish language, because they were the first to bring Africans to this part of the world.
Wow. This was great, Baba. I only have two more questions for you. I appreciate you greatly for your time tonight as
Oh,
well.
sure, brother, man. We got all the
Yes,
time
sir.
in the world, bro.
Thank you. Ancient Numidia, again, they started that off on that very first scene for a reason. I had no idea Jugurtha was the other black man that was in the film. They rarely even mentioned his name. I didn't find this out until after watching the film. Jugurtha, who was he, Baba, and why was he so significant when it comes to ancient history?
Well, Jugurtha stood out in history as a person. He was a personage in history.
Hmm.
Okay, I don't know how he was portrayed in the movie,
Hmm.
but the idea and the concept of having somebody from Numidia, from Morocco, in that movie, and I don't know how much impact that Denzel had in making sure, because I would imagine that maybe Denzel wanted to make sure that somebody like Jugurtha was in that movie,
Wow.
you know, and so that the idea is that the key is there were more than just Jugurtha. Much credit to him, but there was many. Massimo was another one. Uh, Phenomenal leader of the Numidians. A lot of intrigue. And you can go across North Africa. See, that's why I'm trying to get to the Moors before the Moors to help people understand the importance of placing Black people in history before Indo-Europeans were even there.
Right.
And so Jugurtha becomes a figure to be looked at. And how you develop the storyline behind him. I don't know what it is because I told you I wanted to see the movie before we had this conversation, but our younger daughter had twins on Saturday. And so we had to make sure that we were there with her.
Brother.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, twin boys.
Wow.
Lennox and Maddox. We call them the Ox.
I love
it. Twins. And so, yeah, man, no doubt. So I never got to see it. Had I, and I probably will see it eventually. And we can always revisit conversations as we move through the process. And also as I put the final touches on the Etruscans, and I've got a chapter on Africans in the Mediterranean, period. To be able to understand that there are parts of the Spanish language and the Italian language and the Roman language that comes directly out of Africa. Even the word Olu, the Olympics, Olu is a Nigerian word. It's a Yoruba word. And it means mountain. That's where Mount Olympus came from. That's where the Greeks came from, Mount Olympus. And Mount Olympus, of course, is Ptah and Atum in the Kush Kemetic story. But to go back to Jugurtha, there's a lot to be studied on Jugurtha as we move through this process. And to understand the place that he played at that part of history, because the other thing that has to be looked at is what period in history are they talking about that this is going on?
Yeah.
Is it prior to 30 BC? Is it after 30 BC? How close is it to what would become Christianity? Because of the nature of what happened in the world, in that part of the world, with the movement of coming up out of the age of Aries into the age of Pisces.
And Baba, Christians, they were often mentioned throughout the film.
Okay, then that would have had to have been, well, what's even interesting is that the Christians comes from the word caress. Ka meaning spirit, rest means to rise. That comes from Kush, which means the resurrection of the spirit. And this is why Jesus's character rises from the dead. Okay. And, resurrection is Ra's erection. The coming to life, the obelisk, Osiris, fashioning the obelisk in the phallic symbol and to come to life the night before with Aset, to impregnate Aset, to give birth to Caress, or to the spirit that rises, or who is known as Heru. And so when you're looking at all of these stories, it's important. If Christianity is mentioned, Christianity didn't even exist until approximately, some people say somewhere between 200 and 300 AD. Because there is Christianity didn't exist. It is a story that comes out of the early Roman Empire that attempts to squash the Amen priesthood of Kush Kemet because they were revolting. Jesus Christ was not a person. Jesus Christ was a movement. He was a revolutionary movement that fought the Romans. And that's why, and they didn't crucify him on the cross. They crucified him on an X. Arms out and feet out. The cross was something that they invented down the road, but that was not how they crucified people. But they did crucify people. There's stories of them crucifying people. Yeah. But to go back to your question, there's so much that needs to be seen in terms of the time. And, when I get to see it, I'll have a better sense of the way in which the time is. Because you're dealing with astronomy. You're dealing with the early Romans and Greeks who are moving through a period of time, because 30 BC is when the Romans conquer the Greeks. The Greeks are in this area from 30 332 BC until 30 BC. Romans come in after the Punic Wars. They come down, and then they overtake the Greeks in 30 BC. And then the Romans get their foundations in Africa, and then they move across and conquer Europe. And so that's where you get the Roman Empire. And then the language that comes from it. You know, the Spanish language didn't exist until about 526. No, my bad. Later than that, somewhere around like the 13th century.
Wow.
When they French is the same thing. If you know, in Russia, had it not been for Alexander Pushkin, Russians would be speaking French, because Russia was part of Gaul, and the major language of the Gaul was French. That's where you had the president of France, de Gaulle, you know, Charles de Gaulle.
Yep.
That comes out of the Gaul kingdom, and they were running crazy across Europe. And Russia spoke French until Alexander Pushkin. Then Alexander Pushkin created a language that had syntax and grammar that developed over time into what we call the Russian language. Alexander Pushkin did to Russian language what William Shakespeare did to English. And what an African by the name of Antara did to Arabic, because Arabic is a language that comes out of the mountains of Ethiopia. It's all an illusion. You know, we have to know history. So to go back to your question though, with Jugurtha, Jugurtha probably is like Morgan Freeman's character in Robin. Represents something larger, but they pigeonhole him into a person. And then you've got Denzel Washington's character, which I assume from what you said was not based on a historical figure like Jugurtha.
No. Yes, his name was Macrinus.
Okay. So that you can see that, you know, they'll give you part of the history like with Jugurtha, but they will not let you know. They'll make you focus on the made up character, but you won't follow the real. So that it just becomes interesting how they set those types of things up. But I would imagine that he represents something larger as part of this entire movement of Africans in this historical concept.
Sure, Baba, because what was so interesting in the film was that Jugurtha actually took in the main character when he was a young child, and he taught him warfare, civilization, all of those things, which is very similar to a Robin Hood and a Morgan Freeman.
And it's also very similar to Star Wars.
Bingo. Samuel Jackson's character.
Well, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
You know, remember when Star Wars came out with 4, 5, and 6. But then years later, they gave you 1, 2, and 3, where they told you like the prequel to Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
You know, you got Darth Maul and what made Darth Vader go to the dark side, and Palatine and all the rest of that. Where Obi-Wan Kenobi was taught by a master Jedi Knight. Okay. And that is what happened even with Luke Skywalker and his aunt and uncle. That took him in after the mother died and Darth Vader joined the dark side. See, all of these fables come back around and tell a story. Star Wars is based directly, like Lion King is based off the Asarian drama.
Yep.
Okay, Darth Vader means dark father. And the whole time you don't realize that Darth Vader really is the princess and Skywalker's father. You don't know it, so to speak, until it comes time that you realize, wow, that is. So Darth Vader, dark father, Vader, dark father, and you have the Immaculate Conception as it relates to the mother that Darth Vader killed. You see, I mean, all these stories come together. And you have Obi-Wan Kenobi dressed in white, and you have Darth Vader dressed in black. So they took the Assyrian drama and they turned it around. They made the black bad and the white good. In the Assyrian drama, the well, it's not that the white is bad, is that the white is the absence of energy.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not surprised that Jugurtha, but you see, there is no, that was made up in the story. They took the real character, they took a real name, and then they created a false story around him to bring this brother, Denzel Washington, Maxina, you say?
Macronus.
Macronus
Yes, sir.
into existence, so that
Yeah.
you can get a sense of who he was. He became the dark side. He's like Darth Vader.
Yep. Wow. Yes, sir.
You
Wow.
see?
Hearing that though, Baba, like you really broke this down because in the film, the main character is trying to avenge his father's death. So that sounds oddly similar, huh?
That's
Yeah.
Heru. That's
Yeah.
Heru. You see, and that's interesting because that's what I tell us we have to do as a people. Revenge and avenge.
Mm. Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't want to revenge. I want to avenge. When you revenge, you're focused on the person that did the harm.
Right.
When you avenge, you take the place of the person that did good. See, Heru avenged Asar's death from Setan, his evil uncle, by placing himself on the throne. That's what Mufasa did in The Lion King.
Yeah.
He avenged his father's death. Of course, Sklar died, eaten up by the
Hyenas, right?
hyenas.
Yeah.
Okay, but the idea is the fact that he avenged his father's death.
Yeah.
We have to avenge our ancestors' lives,
That's right.
even though so much harm has been done. I don't have time to waste on people who did us the harm.
Mm.
We were heading somewhere in 525 BC when we were attacked by the Persians and Cambyses. We were rudely interrupted from our greatness. And I believe that when we get our heads together and we know what we got to do, we ain't got time to deal with it. We got to continue on the road we were going before we were so rudely interrupted. We have work to do. Their life will take care of that. Because one of the attributes of Ma'at is reciprocity.
Yeah.
Will go around, come around. You shall reap what you've sown. They will pay the price for what they've done. But we have to keep going on. And you know, like I tell people, I'm not doing what I'm doing for our ancestors. What I'm doing through our ancestors for those yet to be born. I'm looking into the future for our children. I don't pay back, I pay forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we have to do this. Otherwise, we'll get caught up in revenge. And we'll spend so much time in being revengeful, we will not be able to sit on the throne of our ancestors who did such great things.
Mm. Yes. Wow. Thank you, Baba, for this conversation. The Etruscans, I already know everybody's going to be looking them up at length. Where are they at today, Baba?
They are still they're all over Italy. They may not
Mm.
know their ancestry, just like we here in America. We got the original black people, the Twa and Buti in us. We've just we have not been able to track our lineage because of what has happened to us as a people.
Yeah.
The Etruscans are as much in Italy. When you go to Italy and you see black people, they very well could have Etruscan blood in them. You also could look to North Africa at certain people who could have the Etruscan blood. But the thing is, look for the word Pelasgi.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what you want to find. You want to find a book that's called the Pelasgi. And out of that, you can start to Google it, you can Wikipedia it, but start there and then to build your research around that. And then get Africans in world civilization.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Baba.
It'll tell you
Again,
everything that you need to know.
yes, sir.
And then wait, because when my book come out, I'm dropping it off.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This was perfect timing, Baba. Again, when you had sent me that text about your fifth and upcoming book, I'm like, man, what's the chances? But hey, that's divine timing.
Yeah.
On the way out, though, Baba, our people, sometimes we can get caught up in our history, but not applying it towards everyday solutions, tangible things. From seeing this film, Gladiator II, all the people who have seen it, what can we do as a people with this information about the Etruscans, Numidia, Hannibal, Carthage? How can we apply all of these histories, this information towards bettering our people and our current situation as a whole?
Learn from them and pick up where they left off. That's all we can do. That's all we can do as a people. Let me give you a book that would help you find out a little bit more. The name of the book is The African Origins of the Classical Civilization, written by G. J. K. Campbell Dunn, Dunn, published by Author House in 2008. This is where you'll find out a lot about the Etruscans and about the Pelasgians, The African Origins of the Classical Civilization by G. J. K. Campbell Dunn, published by Author House. The year was 2008. Because you see, my thing is, and then all the other books too. But you see, my thing that I've always dealt with is evidence, evidence-based knowledge. I don't come with emotion. I come with passion, which is emotion, but I don't come with anger. And what we have to do is that we have to present this information to our people and to our children where it makes common sense, where they can develop a way of looking at this information. And for those that would like to be in contact with me, you can always go to my website, www.kabakamene.com, where you put your email in, and my free e-course, 6-day e-course and study guide will come to you. The first day of the e-course and my study guide comes the first day, and then for 5 days after that each day will come a class as it relates to my e-course on my book, Spirituality Before Religions. And my community bulletin board is Instagram at Kaba Kamene, KABAKAMENE. And then you can continue to follow the work that I'm doing. You be up on all the things that I'm attempting to do for our community, specifically our children, because I visit classrooms and I talk to children. And then I do staff development in the afternoon in some schools. And then I do parental involvement in the evening. Because what good is all this good information in school, but it's not in the house?
That's right.
It's like children live in an oasis in school, and then they return to the desert at night. No, we want your home to be an oasis too. Mm-hmm. And we have work that we have to do, but it's good work. It's hard work. But hard work is good.
That's right.
And we just got to do this, Brother Caleb. And I'd like to thank you for the work that you're doing for us, for our community. And I thank your phenomenal queen, your Hemet Neset Waret, Sid, for all that she does, because I know that beside every man, there is a good one. And so I just thank you all for all the work that you're doing and allowing me to come on this program to talk to your audience with the work that we're doing. And, I always promote 3 Milli Productions, something that we have to start to do. And I'm just very fortunate to be able to speak to your age range, because you're the future. We're going to pass the baton on to you and to Sid, so that you all can carry this to the next level. I challenge to be better than the work that we're doing. Every generation should be preparing the next generation to be better, not like and not less, better than, to be able to take advantage of the work that you're doing. And when I think of Dr. Clark, I don't think of being better as being better than Dr. Clark. But Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben and Asa Hilliard and Shashi McIntyre, beautiful, phenomenal scholar sister, laid the foundation where we, my generation, could pick it up and take it to the next level. And now your generation will take this information to the next level. And the generation that is under you will take that to the next level. And you'll constantly be getting better as time goes on. And so that's the charge that we have. I don't pay back, I pay forward.
That's right.
So thank you for this opportunity, my brother Caleb.
Hey, you already know the feeling is very much mutual, Baba. I appreciate you greatly. And, you know, your voice means so much to my age range. Last time, and I don't even think I had the chance to tell you, but you had 100,000 people tuned in on our last conversation. So
Wow.
your words, it resonates, Baba. So I appreciate you greatly. Again, after seeing this film, you were the very first person on my mind. So I just think it was divine timing of you were already working on your fifth book. So I'm looking forward to that, Baba. Again, you know, we're going to make sure that we push you as much as possible. Your Cash App too, please make sure to share that with all the good people too, you know, if they feel like donating to you as well.
Sure. My Cash App is Kaba Kamene 7. Dollar
Gotcha.
sign Kaba Kamene 7.
I'll have that shown on the screen. But
Absolutely.
yes, Baba, we
And again,
appreciate
all
you,
of my
brother.
work is up on my website or in the link in my bio on Instagram. So if they'd like to, you know, get my streams, my Quibinars, my webinars.
Yes.
Quibinars is teaching methodologies. How do we teach? And webinars is what do we teach?
Awesome. Yes,
So
sir.
I just appreciate that. And you support us and the other scholars that are out here doing this work. You support us, we will support you. And together we can make this happen. There are some people that say that money is the root of all evil, but I'm here to tell you that in this day and age, money is the root of our emancipation and liberation.
That's right.
Let's keep that in mind too. Support the scholars out here doing this work and support the vendors that are out in the street. Support 3 Milli Productions for all that they're doing. But the more that you support them, the more they can support you. Together, we're going to make this happen because it ain't over until we win. So keep on keeping on.
Man.
All power.
Baba, man, I enjoyed this conversation late at night, which is to me the perfect time when it's quiet outside. So I appreciate you, Baba. Thank you. And you have a beautiful night. We love you. We appreciate you 10 times over, brother. Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Looking
Yes.
forward to the future.
Yes. Peace.
Peace.